welcome to another episode of CrossTalk. My name is Kevin Tachi, and I will be your host for the next 30 minutes, as you have come to expect from this particular program that I am a part of and that I sit in front of the camera to speak with you. Is we try to use this as a vehicle to inform the residents of the two communities that we serve, Whitman and Hanson. Talk about, it could be issues, it could be up-and-coming fun events that are happening in the communities, it could be politics. And we are coming into that time of year in both communities and in the state when it comes to talking politics, local elections. So you'll see stuff that'll be on our station coming, people running for Selectman or planning board or whatever. But we also have people who are running for state office. Joining me is a gentleman who is looking for your vote come, well, depends on if he ends up having somebody for the primary in September or he goes on through in November. We have Vince Cogliano Jr. joining us, sir.
Good to see you, Kevin.
Welcome to welcome to my show that normally you do stuff with me on the radio,
right?
But you're here on TV. Vince is running for state representative in the 6th Plymouth District. That district encompasses a part of the communities that we serve, Hanson, but it's also Pembroke and Duxbury. First and foremost, those who may not know you, I don't know how they don't, because from what I hear, you have a heck of a farm. Tell folks a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was raised in Pembroke. Attended Pembroke Elementary Schools, went to Silver Lake and graduated from there. After that, I did some broadcasting, actually, working in radio at the time, and then went into the Army, as a lot of folks did back in that time.
Sure.
Served for 2 years and 7 months, got out and went back into broadcasting, did some radio, and got into TV as well, doing some news and weather and sports.
I can see it.
So that was great fun, had a terrific time doing that, but got the bug to open up my own business. And I opened up a restaurant. This was in Ohio because I was working at the TV station in Ohio. And opened up a restaurant there, and then the Marriott Corporation had recruiters in Columbus looking for people to work for Marriott. And I felt that if I was going to be in the restaurant business, I wanted to learn more about it. We were marginally successful in the restaurant, not too successful. So I went to work for Marriott and wound up going from assistant manager with the Marriott Corporation in Washington, D.C. to regional operations manager in Connecticut. So I spent 10 years with them and then started a couple of other companies, including one that I was very proud of. My brother and I started a company that we used technology, voice, video, and data, video conferencing, working for the military, the Pentagon, and historically black colleges and universities, majority colleges and universities, Boeing, GE, and Harris Corporation. And the idea was to connect historically black colleges and universities, which there are about 107 in America, and connect them with majority universities and with Department of Defense installations so that they could put different courses than they currently had at those colleges. It's still a fact today that many historically black colleges don't have computer science courses, don't have engineering, etc. And many black students who are going to college for the very first time don't want to necessarily take colleges. They might be the first person in their family ever to go to college. So taking courses that aren't as demanding and making sure you get a degree is almost more important in some of those cases. So a lot of these colleges don't have engineering, computer science, etc. So we were working with Georgia Tech as one of our schools, for instance, and they would teach courses via video into the black colleges, hoping that enough students would take the courses that they could eventually start their own courses at those colleges. And I can tell you, if you're a minority student at a place like Georgia Tech and you graduate with an engineering degree, it's like the NBA draft, Kevin. The money is thrown at those students and they can make a very good living, but there aren't enough minority engineers in this country right now. There aren't enough engineers in general, I
Period,
think.
right?
But so that was the purpose of the program. It was very rewarding. We were on Good Morning America, the Today Show, Wall Street Journal carried a story about us.
You got around.
Yeah, we were a Defense Department Contractor of the Year in 1989. Unfortunately, there's a good and a bad side to this. Well, all the notoriety, it was a great company. We were a week away from signing a letter of intent to take the company public when Desert Storm came about, the first one.
Oh, right.
And Pentagon stopped funding companies like ours. And we got a call on a Wednesday from the Pentagon saying that our funding was going to be cut immediately. With the funding cut, no public offering, no nothing. So we went from being Defense Department Contractor of the Year, on TV, a great company, a good company doing some good things, to being out of business.
Wow.
So that's one of those life lessons that I would rather not have gone through. But you learn from everything, and that was one of them. You learn that you can get up from the worst things and you can get yourself back on your feet and you can take a job and go on with your life. And my brother wound up doing very well, starting his own company, and I wound up starting several of my own companies as well. So my background is business, starting companies, working for bigger companies. I've also was a selectman in Pembroke for 6 years, chairman of the Plymouth County GOP for, I guess, around 9 or 10 years. And we also have a 12.9 acre family farm in Pembroke where we grow Christmas trees.
That's the rumor.
That's right. We'll have strawberries this year. For anyone who likes to pick your own strawberries, I will not pick your strawberries. But you can pick your own strawberries, and they're always great. So my brother and I and my 100-year-old father take care of the farm. And it's good to get out. I mean, if you're in an office all the time and you're working and you're not outside and you're not doing things, you don't get the same sense of accomplishment that you do by planting something and watching it grow and then having people come in and like what you're doing and buy it and come back for many years. We've got people who come in and buy Christmas trees who have been coming in for over 30 years. Their kids now come in. You know, so it's fun. It's nice.
Transcending generations with your Christmas trees.
Yeah, it's always nice to do that, and it's good to get out and actually do some physical work where you get dirty and work up a sweat and realize that, you know, that you do whatever it takes to get things done.
Right.
So so that's I will say that I have 2 great daughters, Lisa and Laura, and I have 3 grandchildren. Who live in Connecticut, who are now, this week, because it's school vacation, they're out in Utah skiing, which is nice. They didn't invite Grandpa, but it's great. They're great to be around, and so I love all the things that I've done, and now I'm want to take another step in a different direction.
Let's kind of correlate from being a selectman. I personally think myself it's important to have some kind of municipal experience if you are going to look to go to the next level. Too many times I see people who run for office, have never been appointed to a board, and want to run for Congress. And God bless, it's not totally impossible. I just think that in order to kind of have an understanding as to what people are going through locally in a part of a district, you probably should have some kind of experience. Talk to me about gaining that experience as a 2-term selectman in Pembroke.
Well, I loved being a selectman. I had a wonderful time. We accomplished a lot, I think, when I was a selectman. One of the things was to have our own school system. We left the Silver Lake District. And we now have Pembroke High School.
Fantastic place.
Yeah, we're coming up on our 15th anniversary of that starting of that committee. So that was a terrific project. It was something that took it a long time, took years to get it completed, but doing so and looking back on it now and seeing the way the town of Pembroke has really taken to having its own school and all that, it definitely was worth it. But being a selectman, you get a lot of good things, but you also get the barking dog calls. You get the speeding calls. You get
Potholes.
trash calls, potholes.
Yep.
It's the type of job that when you're out somewhere with your family or whatever, you'll have someone come up and say, excuse me, Mr. Cogliano, but I don't want to bother you, but, and the but always is a problem. But the good part of it is that you're able to solve a lot of problems for people, and that's the really rewarding part of being, I would think in any kind of public service, but particularly being a selectman, you're right there close to the problem, you get people's feedback, and you try to get things done. And you also get to see the other side of how you interface with state government. Because as a selectman, you want to see local aid increased. You want to see your aid to schools increased. If you don't see that, then you're on the wrong end of some things, and you're going to have to find ways to still fund public safety, schools, etc., without hopefully having to have an override. And when you don't get local aid increases up to the level of increases in what you need, it forces some very difficult decisions. For instance, we had to do an override for our schools in Pembroke. And no one likes overrides, but at the same time, we have a very good school committee in Pembroke. Yep. We have very good school administration. We have terrific parental involvement in the schools. And this was one of those overrides that when all the facts were on the table, you knew that you had to have it in order to make sure that you were doing what you need to do to take care of the kids in the education and the school system. We have to look at the same thing with public safety. There's some needs now in all of our towns for public safety.
With the way the world is.
That's right. So we need to look at that issue. No one likes to raise taxes. I'm a Republican. I'm running for state rep. I don't want to raise taxes. What I want to see is local aid increase to the levels of what it used to be, so that we can try to grow just in levels that will accommodate the money we're getting back from the state.
Would you say that local aid is, and that's Chapter 70 for education, Chapter 90 because everybody loves to have the new roads, so you don't have to worry about the potholes for 15, 20 years when the roads get old. But is it strictly would you say that local aid is kind of the big thing, the big issue usually when it comes to a state race like representative?
Well, not necessarily. I think that I don't think enough people, for instance, for the last 8 years, have really appreciated the fact that our state government has grown tremendously and that the services haven't kept up with what we want from state government. And yet they've added thousands of people, and at the expense of local aid. We haven't, sure, a lot of people say, oh, well, we've had local aid increases every year, Vince. We've worked hard on that. Well, no, you haven't. No, because what you've done is token increases in state aid and local aid, rather, and it hasn't been enough to really, the other thing that we've been told by our legislators is, well, we'll let you enact a local meals tax.
At 0.75%.
Sure,
right?
So that's what we want to do is tax locally or find other way, or you can have an override, Vince, that'll work. Well, that's not what we want to hear. What we want to hear is if we as a town have to live within our means, we want the state to live within their means as well, and we haven't seen that, Kevin.
Right.
No one can say that we've seen our state government live within our means. Look what Governor Baker is having to deal with right now. We've started the budget process on Beacon Hill. The House has it now. Sometime in April, it'll probably go to the Senate.
Right.
And then in June, they'll have a compromise,
conference
the conference
call,
committee and the compromise. But what everyone is saying, there's only going to be, at best, probably about a 4% increase in tax revenue this year. And that's without what we hope we don't see, which is there are signs we either are in or about to go into another recession. And they're serious, strong signs. So if that happens, will revenue be reduced even more? So the legislature is going to let Governor Baker handle what could be a serious problem.
Sure.
They're not going to make any serious cuts or any cuts. Their budgets are probably going to come in. The way it looks now, it appears the budgets are going to come in at a level that we will not have enough money to fund those programs. So what that will force the governor to do is make a choice of making some cuts, and then the legislature can say, well, we didn't want those cuts, or raise taxes. Now that's a perfect scenario for the legislature to try to force the governor to raise taxes, which I don't think you're going to see that. I think our governor is smart enough to realize where some cuts can be made so that we can at least live within the budget that will come out in the conference committee, but it won't be enough to really increase local aid this year. We're going to have a little bit of an increase, but not nearly.
Right.
The fact that Governor Baker was a selectman for 6 years, there's nothing that he wants to do more than raise local aid.
Because he understands what's going on at the local level.
Exactly.
Right.
So
he's been there, he's done it.
He really wants to do that, but this isn't, it's probably going to be next year's budget after he's able to really look into some things and make some efficiencies and some cuts in order to make government more effective and stop the expansion so that the local communities can get some more of the money that they're paying in their taxes. And that's fair. That's fair. That's what should be done. But that's what's not happened for the last 8 years. And yet we haven't had a lot of people who have said, wait a minute, why aren't we doing more on Beacon Hill to rein in out of control spending? Why aren't we doing things that makes our government more efficient so that the towns and cities can get some more money? Right. We haven't had that, and yet I haven't seen a lot of anger from people saying, we need more for our towns, and I don't think that's a good thing. I think that people need to be aware that we deserve something in our local communities that we're not getting now. And it can't just be, well, I did my best.
Right.
Okay? Doing your best isn't enough. We have a governor now who is terrific. He's got an 80% approval rating right now.
That's what the Globe's saying.
That's right, because people believe that Charlie Baker doesn't care about left, right, politics, or anything. He cares about solving problems. And I want to go on Beacon Hill because I support Governor Baker and I want to help him. And I don't think we're getting that now.
Let's go away from because we could probably talk for the rest of the show about how the state's finances are, talk about the stabilization fund, talk about the prior administration. We could go on and on and on. I think there is a bigger issue that is before our leaders, elected leaders, and that is the opiate addiction crisis.
Yes. That
every community, I think not only in the Commonwealth, but across the country. I mean, we're hearing it in presidential politics when they're getting up there, and we're seeing it in their advertising. So this is something that is transcending even beyond local politics. But give me your thoughts on the situation as we're seeing it with drug addiction.
Well, I think, as you know, I've been friends with our Plymouth County Sheriff, Joseph McDonald Jr., for a long time, with our district attorney, Tim Cruz. They've been talking about this for a long time. They've been concerned about it for a long time. I've met with 2 of the 3 chiefs of police in this district. Governor Baker, when he took office, before he took office, was talking about opioid addiction problems and how he wanted to address them. For 4 years, we had over 1,000 people a year dying in Massachusetts, and no one would recognize the problem. The legislature ignored it. The governor ignored it. Human lives were put above or below political ambitions. And to me, that is unconscionable to do those types of things. Governor Baker made it a political issue early on in his campaign. He listened to law enforcement, he listened to medical experts, and he came up with a program back in October of last year. The Senate, anticipating that the governor's bill was going to be ready, they came out with one 2 weeks before, to their credit. Now, for years, there was no problem in their minds, so they did nothing. Now we have a governor doing it, and they wanted to make sure they got in on the credit. Right. The state legislature, the House, just started or just completed their bill, and every state legislator who cared to got their picture taken so it could appear in the local newspaper saying that they were doing something about this terrible problem that they had ignored until Governor Baker brought it to everyone's attention and did something about it. Now, that's great, But I have to give credit to people like the sheriff and the DA, the chiefs of police in Hanson and Pembroke and Duxbury, because without a lot of money, without a lot of fanfare, for quite a few years, they have been meeting and coming up with programs to do things locally to help with this problem. So you got to give them all a great amount of credit. I spent time at the Plymouth County Jail looking at the things that they're doing. The sheriff is making beds available for people who are addicted. Yep. Sheriff Cummings in Barnstable County is doing wonderful things there, with addiction programs, to the point of having almost a daycare situation where if you've been in jail because of addiction problems, you get out. One of the worst things that happens is immediately the person goes back to their home situation or with their friends or whatever it might be.
Square one.
And immediately, within 24 hours, they're back on the drugs.
Right.
So what the local law enforcement are doing is, within 24 hours of your release, they'll have someone at your house, including a medical person, to counsel, or a counselor rather, to counsel you in that first 24 hours to see if you actually want to make the decision to get into rehab, and if you do, they'll help you find a bed. So they're not treating this, they have the law enforcement part of it, which is for the dealers and all of that, but if you're a user and you want to do something about it, they're treating it as a health issue.
It's being called a disease. It's funny you mentioned it, because earlier today I was speaking with a local public safety official, a ranking official, and we were talking about it, how this is beyond epidemic proportions, and it isn't something that you could just kind of lock somebody in an area that has bars, and that it's something that we have to figure out how to be able to cure the disease. And myself, I feel as though the disease was brought on by the pharmaceutical companies and some of the physicians out there who treat people. Not all, but there are those out there who help stoke the flames of this, and something has to be done. And if there's a way for our elected leaders to find a way to put blame on on an industry for this, I hope that's something that's down the road. That's another conversation for another day.
Well, one of the things, though, we've talked about this before, you and I, but I think one of the great things in the bill that that all three, the Senate, the House now, and what the governor had put forth, is that they don't want to see doctors writing prescriptions for very strong painkillers for a month.
Yeah.
So in the governor's bill, he has it 3 years. I think in the Senate, it's 3 days.
Yep.
In the Senate, I think it's 7 days. So either way, if a doctor has to have someone back into their office to be evaluated within 7 days on that prescription to see if they need more, and they can only give 7 days more, that's a good thing. I think it forces them to look at the patient, to talk to them, ask questions, because, like I said, as you know, some people can be addicted after 2 weeks, some after a month. Some people, after months, they're just not going to become addicted, but you want medical personnel to be examining them so that you know what the level of their need for that drug is at that time. And then you can either say, you know what, we're going to prescribe something of a less or not at all for you because I think you're getting too dependent on it. But that can head off a lot of the problems that we have. But it's still, there are still going to be people who aren't taking prescription medications, who just want to try it, who want to try heroin, and they're going to get on it. I mean, we've never had this problem before where you have people calling in public safety officials saying, we were walking with my children on the side of the road and we saw a needle. Will you come and pick it up?
Yeah, and it's not like it's somebody who's a diabetic, right?
It never happened when you and I were growing up.
Maybe a beer can or two, but
yeah, and you might have thrown it there.
But the idea is that we're living in different times.
Yeah.
We got about 5 minutes left, and I want to make sure to give you enough time to, if you want to continue talking about this, so be it. But if there's another issue, or if you want to kind of give kind of a mission statement as to if you are successful in September and November, what you'd like to do if you're an elected official as a state representative serving this district.
Well, for one thing, obviously helping Governor Baker and local law enforcement on the opioid abuse and addiction problem. I think another big issue for this area is energy.
Yep.
We're about to lose Pilgrim and that's in the end of 2019. It sounds like a long way away, but it isn't. We have Governor Baker wants to bring in cheap hydroelectric power from Canada. He also wants to expand gas pipelines so that we can get more gas because we don't have the capacity to bring in a lot more cheap gas. The only thing the House is taking up this year is solar. Now, solar is great. It's a highly inefficient method right now. Hopefully in 10 to 20 years it's going to be efficient, one. Two, that there'll be battery storage available that you can use it so that on days when there's no sun, you can have some power. And that will come. I mean, science will solve that problem. It's a solvable problem, but it's not there yet. And it might not be for at least 20 years to really be. Right now, you get solar panels on your house, they're not going to last the 20 years of the lease. Most energy companies that sell you that guarantee, which means they'll replace some panels if you need them. But Governor Baker, I want to do that because we've seen energy bills double in the last 2 years. We're going to see them double again. We need more than just feel-good talk about solar energy. We need something really to be done because we have so many seniors and so many people who are poor living on $1,200 a month.
Sure. Fixed
when
incomes.
you take another $65 a month out for energy, where do you get that from?
Sure.
What don't you eat? What don't you take care of? What don't you buy? What bill don't you pay to pay for energy? And we can solve this problem and reduce energy cost if we pay attention. But right now, the governor seems to be the only one who wants to do anything about it, so I want to help support him there.
Okay.
And then something as simple as the Senate passed a cell phone bill, or it's on the table, I'm not sure it's passed.
Hands-free.
Yeah, you got to be hands-free or you get a $100 to a $500 fine. The House has done nothing. I was driving on my way to the Hanover Mall over the weekend, and a woman twice nearly ran me off the phone, and when I finally got up beside her, she was talking on her phone and not paying attention.
A lot of people can't walk and chew bubble gum. So
some people can.
Yeah, some people can't.
Unfortunately, there are people who can't, and I don't want to be killed by them, and I don't want my friends or family to be killed by them.
Sure. You don't want to see anybody harmed.
So I'd like to see the House do something about that. So I want to advocate for that as well as a number of other things. But there's not a lot the House is really taking up this year. It seems they want to be safe. The $15 an hour minimum wage that they're tabling for an off-election year because they know how many businesses it will cripple.
Sure.
So that's another one. We simply, you know what? What they've done is they've thrown up their hands and realized that their policies have caused businesses to have so many problems that they can't expand. We don't have a full employment economy. When you do have a full employment economy, wages rise unbelievably. That's the solution to the problem, not putting in a $15 an hour minimum wage that'll cripple businesses.
You're going to hate me for saying this, but we got like 1 minute left.
Okay,
so,
1 minute.
So you get quickly, if you can look in the camera, tell folks how they can find out more about you and maybe reach out to your campaign.
But we have to do another program,
We'll have
Kevin.
to do the program.
You can reach me through the website, which is coglianoforstaterep.com, or you can also go to electvince@gmail.com, and would love to have people call us, question us, get in touch with us, join the campaign. We're going to need a lot of help to win this seat, but I want to go to Beacon Hill to support Governor Baker. He deserves that support, and that's what I'd like to do. Thanks. Kevin, thanks for having me on.
Thank you for the program that's flown, and thank you very much for joining us here on CrossTalk. Until next time, have a great day.